Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren from the British Fantasy Society, and today I am here with Nick Wells, the publisher and creative director of Flame Tree Publishing, and writer Shilpa Varma, who is Flame Tree's new writer in residence. We're here to talk all about this new initiative that Flame Tree has. So, welcome, Nick and Shilpa.
Thank
Hi there.
you.
Hello. Um, Maybe do you want to just start with giving us the 60-second overview of who you are? So, Nick, can you just introduce yourself for the audience?
Okay, so as you said, I'm Nick Wells from Flame Tree. I set up Flame Tree, and Francis and I have run Flame Tree for something ridiculous like 30 years. And in the last maybe 12 years, we've really focused on not just making beautiful books and beautiful notebooks and art calendars, but we particularly encourage open submissions from writers. And generally speaking, most of the fiction that we publish, which a lot of it is short fiction, comes from open submissions rather than through agents. And we're always looking for new ways of assisting writers, encouraging writers, and not just from the usual sort of publishing bubble, which is a trap we can all fall into. So
Hmm.
this discussion and Shilpa is very much part of that sort of exercise.
Excellent. And Shilpa, welcome to Flame Tree. Welcome to the British Fantasy Society. Can you tell us
Thank
a little bit
you.
about your background?
So I'm an actor and a writer, not necessarily in that order, but yeah. So I've always been writing. I've written for kids for Cartoon Network and Walt Disney India when I was in India, and then I moved to London to do my master's in acting.
Mm.
And now here I am trying to make sense of everything that I have done, I have lived, and putting that into words for Flame Tree Publishing.
Awesome. And it is a very exciting thing that you're doing with Flame Tree. So Nick, maybe if we start with you, you've embarked on this writer in residence program. So can you tell us a little bit about the idea behind this?
Yes, so really, you tend to think of writers in residence and artists in residence in a more theatrical context or an arts council type context. And it can be a little bit elitist in the way that it operates. And I think one of the challenges that we face within publishing and as a publisher, we have a series of bubbles which all seem to end up in well, in my case, let's say, white middle class maleness. So it's a kind of constant battle to try and just really delve into the diversity of humanity.
Hmm.
So we publish books on mythology and folklore, in particular, and fantasy, horror, and science fiction, and we're always seeking different ways of reaching a wider community, to seek voices, and introduce those voices and mediate between voices and thoughts really, and encourage that sort of self-expression. So the writer in residence element of this has come out of that as a way of showing people that there are more than just opportunities to write things.
Hmm.
We're very keen to create excellence, let's say. So it isn't about tokenism, because that's often a potential problem. It's about creating a level playing field, giving access to everybody, but understanding different voices and in different places. So a writer in residence is part of that attempt, one of many parts of attempts.
Sure. And that diverse storytelling, you've mentioned it several times now, and that's a really important part of the Flame Tree mission. So why is it that you want to really focus on elevating those voices?
Well, really, on the evidence of the submissions that we get, apart from walking around in the everyday world, really, probably 95%, maybe more of our submissions are from from middle class white people,
Hmm.
and that's partly because they know the game.
Hmm.
They know that they can spot something online in a particular place and follow the rules and apply. And there is a danger that if you don't know the rules of the game or you're not in that place, then you won't submit. So I think the world is full of great writers, and it is a problem. But what we want to do is just to find great writers in lots of different places and
Hmm.
make equal judgments across that. So in the last few years, we've made particular attempts at publishing very specific sorts of books like Afrofuturism last year, African Futurism this year. We published a book by Amal Singh, who's a Mumbai Indian resident, And really, we've done a lot of work in China. And a lot of it is because once you start to talk to other cultures and people from other cultures, you see yourself in a different way. And that's very, very important. So it's creating that level playing field, trying to constantly challenge the way we think, because that is a creative endeavor in its own right. That's where it came from, really.
Sure. And not to embarrass her because she's sitting right next to you, but why did you choose Shilpa for the first writer in residence at Flame Tree?
Well, so Shilpa is interesting, even though she's sitting right next to me. Not, not, not simply because from our diverse background, which is, I won't say incidental, but it's actually her theatrical background, which is particularly interesting because it is different. Because one thing that's very important these days, and we had a quick chat about it beforehand, was that trying to reach people of different ages and different backgrounds is important, and just putting a printed object in front of some people is actually slightly alienates sometimes, and it might lead to us to thinking that, say, younger generations or different people or people from the theatre or the filmmaking world aren't dealing with the written word. Well, of course, they're dealing with language. So language and self-expression manifest in many, many different ways. And I think Shilpa's, as I said, theatrical background is very, very important to that, because the theatre, you distill on stage, you distill the language to a great extent because you've got this other experience around you. So when you're writing a script for that sort of thing, you have to know how the audience is going to be seeing what else is going on, and that forces the writing in a different direction. So that was very important to us.
Sure. And we'll talk a little bit more at the end about the future for this initiative, this program, and what sort of things you want to be doing. But for this specific first engagement, what would you like Shilpa to be doing? What have you set her to do? What's her remit, and how long is it going to last?
Well, the initial remit is a 12-month remit, and it's now integrated into actually the next stage of how we want to do things, which is we're moving into a series of workshops and mentorship programs,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which follows on from having a writer in residence, which allows us to think that way. So we both got, so Shilpa is going to be organizing a lot of that. Um, and it's useful that a writer is organizing that, not just someone who's sort of, I won't say pushing writers around, but it's always helpful to have someone who understands what's going on.
Mm,
So, we the output is very much contributing work, which incidentally is Shilpa's copyright. Any work that I keep saying artist, the writer in residence does under this guise has been encouraged and sponsored by us, if you like, but it is their copyright. But we want to see that manifesting, let's say, in the podcast, and maybe an audio drama, in printed short fiction, in ebook. So what it shows is many, many different models. And what we hope through the workshops and the mentorship program, we might have poetry slams, do just different sorts of things to try and encourage different people to see things in a different way and think that, well, maybe they'd have a try, and if they show that they've got a try, they might have a great idea, but not really sure how they can do, how they can apply it, make things easier for them, so that the emphasis is on their expression. And in Shilpa's case, we've got an example of how that has happened.
sure. And well, let's chat with you, Shilpa. Now that you've been very patient sitting there listening to Nick talk about you. But what is it that attracted you to want to be the writer in residence for Flame Tree?
I think it's what Nick said, because it's not just, any or a writer in residence. It was very specific, the brief so-called that I got from Nick, because it talks about perspective more than anything else. And the perspective that I bring on board for who I am, where I belong to, and of course, my experience in theater. So
Mm,
I couldn't have asked for anything better, to be honest, because um, I think any writing that you do is always about who you are and where you have been. And
mm,
this encouraged this position encouraged that. So yeah.
Yeah. And we did hear a little bit about some of your background earlier, but can you just talk us through a bit about your journey with creativity through the theatre, through the Disney, through the Cartoon Network, all of these amazing things that you've done? Can you just explain a little bit of your potted history in creativity?
Sure. So I was with Cartoon Network India as I was heading their animation production for local animation. And then I jumped to Walt Disney India and did the same thing.
Mm.
So it was lovely. We were making cartoons, fun job. Talking to kids. But the very important lesson that I learned there is even though the target audience was kids, you talk to them, never
Have a doubt.
down to them. So
Mm.
that is something that I always carry with me as a writer or a performer, whatever, in anything, any kind of performing art per se. And in 2019, I was like, too many years in the corporate world and I need to do something else. And I
Yeah.
don't know, acting happened and I wanted to invest in the craft. And that's why I shifted to London to study acting. So I've done my master's with Drama Studio London here in London. And I write my own one-woman plays and I've been performing them. And then I write here at Flame Tree. So it's been, yeah, a lot of that along with uh, being a mom, a daughter, and a wife. So yes.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that sort of hearing that background because as Nick was telling us, a lot of this remit is to highlight and encourage that cross-border, cross-cultural storytelling. And so I'm just wondering, and this is one of these horrible questions that you get asked when you're doing these sorts of things, but how important is that cross-cultural storytelling to you as a South Asian creative?
It is, I would say, as important as it should be for anybody else,
Yeah.
uh, because it's if I just want to talk about being a South Asian writer and from that perspective, because there's more to South Asians than Bollywood and mythology,
Yeah.
and I was like, it's high time we started looking at each other from a different lens.
Mm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
get to like it's nice to get to know us. We're getting to know you, kind of a thing,
Yeah.
without any preconceived notions.
Absolutely. And you're exploring that in the blog series you're writing for Flame Tree as
Absolutely.
well, called Between Worlds. So what really stands out for you as you navigate that divide, as you sort of live between worlds as a creative?
It's before being a creative, it's like living in experiencing two different worlds as a person. That's very interesting. And then, when you want to talk about it, you don't have to struggle to write, I would say that way. So
Mm.
what's interesting is very little everyday things, like the first time I was here and queuing behind people and people are waiting patiently, like I don't know, if I would have in India, I don't know,
Mm.
someone would have just jumped the queue and like what's going on, and yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
And very personal things, like my son turned 18 and his was such a quiet birthday, and I did not even realize in India it would have been such a big deal, like 18 and the family coming over and what is he going to do. So everything in India is everybody else's, like nothing is your personal thing. Like
Mm.
it's not just my son doing something, it is my auntie's nephews, like that. So
Mm.
these tiny simple things about everyday weather, we don't talk about weather at all in India. And
They love it here.
it just rains. It just when it rains, it rains. It's never like a drizzle or a pour, or I don't know too many words you guys use for different kind of rains here. So yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
Just one thing though, Will, you wrote really interestingly in the last blog about books,
Yeah,
different
I
things.
did.
Yeah, I think that's worth highlighting.
Yeah, about the culture of publishing. Before coming here, I had never seen so many libraries, to be honest. There are libraries, but here you do not have to travel a long way to be in a safe space where you can read, talk about books.
Mm.
It happens in India. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's not as much as it should be. So
Mm.
that was very different. And of course, like for books, for us is like, you know, it's something that you really you can't touch it with sticky hands, or you just keep looking at it and you have to think before, doing anything with the book. While here you actually live with the books. They can be on your bed, one in the toilet if you want to read there, I don't know. So that kind of a difference.
Yeah.
And of course, publishing, indie publishing is happening more here,
Mm.
and which I really thought should happen more.
Mm.
And something that can be done more is translations. But
Mm.
here, like in Flame Tree, we are doing so many anthologies from different parts of the world. And Nick just showed me the Ramayana that they did, which is like the epic for us. So
Mm.
things like these, the cross-border, cross-pollination happening in
Mm.
publishing, it
Yeah.
was eye-opening, very nice, and yeah, very happy to be here, to be a part of it.
Yeah. So what is the publishing world like in India? Is it you sort of gave a bit of a hint there that it maybe is a little bit more sort of higher areas and a little bit more sort of revered in a way rather than being
Yeah.
lived with. Can you just tell us a little bit about the differences there?
Mm.
So there are publication houses and indie publishers,
Mm.
but what is not happening is the number of readers. I think that the number of readers is not going up, especially in small towns, tier A and B towns. There, because the it's not the children, I think, are not conditioned per se.
Mm.
If it's only the upper middle class which is investing in books, because books are expensive, so to think of getting a book every month is
Mm.
something that would mean a considerable amount of money. And
Mm.
because of that, maybe, I don't know what the reason is, but
Mm.
reading is not happening as much. And that's why I think then there's not those many publications or not those many books as the population of India, if you
Mm.
compare
Mm.
to that.
Mm.
And also our old as in Hindi authors, there are not too many Hindi books which are now being published, very few. And uh, it's sad to see that the regional languages or the are not being given that much importance.
Mm, yeah. And,
Because
yeah, and as you say, it's such a huge country with
yeah,
such cultural diversity within it as
yeah.
well. That the homogenization must be sort of quite heartbreaking, really.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
So
what is the speculative fiction world like in India? We're British Fantasy Society. We do sci-fi, fantasy, horror, the whole bit. The genre world. What's that like over there?
I don't know. I think it's only happening online. Like
Mm.
I've seen mostly the young adults going for it
Mm.
than the older generation, if I can say
Mm.
so. And have I seen the books in a physical format? I'm trying to think now.
Yeah, yeah,
It's, I think, more what the kids, when they talk to each other, and it's mostly online what they can find to read
yeah,
rather than a physical book in hand.
yeah.
But having said that, it is picking up, it is growing.
Mm. Yeah,
I think there's just to interject very slightly from the outside perspective.
yeah.
I would say science fiction and fantasy is very tentative as a
Mm.
a focus. Alan Stroud, who was just the former of the British
Mm.
Science Fiction Association and a friend of all of us here.
Indeed.
He's put me in touch with a group of science fiction writers in India.
Ooh,
Yeah, and he's been trying. There is a group, and it has that sort of underground cell to
yeah,
it,
maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
because they are so tentative.
Mm.
They it's just they're not used to the nurturing
Yeah.
that one has through a society like
Mm.
British Fantasy Society. So it is very very different. And in fact, in China, it's different again, because in China the science fiction has a respectability, but it's entirely attached to universities and academic institutions in order to survive at all. So it has a very, very different perspective there, but it's actually very, very big in China now, in the cities, but not in the countryside.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably quite similar.
And it's something that we can take for granted here in the West, and especially somewhere like the UK or the US, where there is such a nurturing environment. It's something we can really take. So just goes to show how important this work is, that you don't no pressure or anything, Shilpa, but it's just shows how important that is. One thing I personally wanted to ask you about, I read that you're doing, as part of this remit, a folk horror audio mini series. That's my thing. I'm a folk horror person. So can you tell us a little bit about that project and how you're working on that, and when is it going to be ready for us?
So I was in India a couple of months back, and Nick and I were talking about folk horror. He really wanted to do something about it. And so this one that I'm writing, it's based on a mythological god in a tribal area of India, which is Bastar. And there's like maybe not a clan that worships this particular god, but I don't know, like a group of people or a section of the society, they do. And the stories that I heard were very different from the other gods in mythology. And this is a lesser known god, maybe only restricted to that part of the country. So it's based on that, like how a group of Westerners, they want to film about this god. They go to this tribal area, and then what happens? How, what does the god want from them? And and I have tried being true to the original, in the sense I've tried using the sounds or the landscape or the birds, flora, fauna that is found there. So yeah.
Yeah, I particularly love the depiction of stumbling Europeans talking very loudly with their misconceptions and stereotypes.
Yeah.
Sort of rings horribly true.
Absolutely. And that's such a thing in folk horror, isn't it? It's usually the Western perspective, the European perspective. So
Yeah.
yeah, to see it flourishing in other cultures now is great. Yeah. Sorry, Nick, it felt like you wanted to say something else there.
Sorry, I was trying restraining a cough, but I will say one thing. One of the reasons I'm particularly interested in folk horror is that the folk bit, i.e., the everyday bit of our past, is very present in us today in a way that's often suppressed. So there is a fascination with gods, but really the gods and the mythologies are places where humans were the playthings of the gods and are the mercy of the gods. Once you start going down to the folk horror, there's this sort of ancient battle of humanity and dread and fear, as it tries to cope with the world, and getting around and trying to make the best of the world. And I think there is a lot of good horror. Well, let's say dark fantasy, which can be derived from many different traditions around the world. We're doing a book called Latin American Shared Stories with the V Castro at the moment, which is a collection of short stories from many different countries, and they're all completely different from each other. A little bit like India, actually. You tend to think of South America as this conglomerate, but actually it is many different regions, and India is full of many different emphases. So I think the more we learn about those differences and are interested in them, and then we explore them, the more it obviously tells us about ourselves and so on, but makes us think about what's going on in the world.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's, the belief systems might be different, the gods might be different, but the human experience is very similar. Yeah. No, that's brilliant. So I realize I've been chatting or sort of getting you to talk to me for a while now. So just a couple more questions, if I may. For both of you, really, I'll just throw this out. Like, this is obviously such a important and fruitful partnership already. But what are you both hoping to achieve from your respective ends through this Writer in Residence initiative?
No, you go first.
I think visibility is of not flame trees, but just a thing which needs to be highlighted, which is self-expression and creativity in its many different forms, so that we can move on to do these other things I was talking about earlier, which is workshops and mentorship programs, while creating excellence. Tokenism is the enemy of expression in many ways because it creates an anti-bias. And in fact, what we need to do is facilitate people's expression and creativity. And I very much see this role as doing that and allowing us to move on to other things.
Sure. And Shilpa, what about you? What do you hope to achieve?
So that, and also as Nick mentioned, like mentoring, other writers and looking for different perspectives from different people. I think that's what both of us want to do together. That's very important.
Yeah, I think it allows us to explore storytelling in its many, many different forms. So
Absolutely.
I think that's a big part of it.
Sure. And you've alluded to it quite a bit already, Nick, but the official question to you now, what is next for the Writers in Residence program? What else are you looking to do as you support and encourage this self-expression?
Well, so we are setting up a series of workshops. We will be taking space in a local arts centre in London, and it's deliberately designed to be close to a train station so that we can both work locally, which we've never really done before, because in London, in Hammersmith, and in Putney, there are lots of people. It's not just full of rich middle class Londoners. It's full of people who have no other outlet necessarily to explore themselves. So we will be setting up these workshops, and our intention very much is to explore the diversity of opinion and background, and allow people to express themselves in a way which works for them. I mean, some people are very good or are exposed to film and only film, and so actually they think in those kind of filmic terms. Well, that's it, 100 years ago, that didn't exist, but it is still a form of self-expression and still a form of language. And a lot of this is about language and storytelling.
Yeah.
But the mentorship program as part of this is very important because it aims to guide people. There's a lot of people feel frustrated about not being published, but then, all writers feel that. We're not alone. I used to be told that you'd be lucky to get published once in 10. I think it's more like once in 20, 25, maybe 30 if you're really lucky, because
Yeah.
there's so many people doing it. And
Yeah.
so actually that in itself is a community of people trying to make things work. But of course, you've got to be able to write to a standard to even be considered, maybe to be turned down or to be redirected, or some people are turned down because there are 5 other stories which are on the same subject. That's not necessarily obvious. So
Yeah.
just passing on that sort of knowledge is going to be very important. So over the next 6 to 12 months, those are the sort of programs that we'll be developing, and the right in residence is very, very important as part of that. Leading
Sure.
that, really.
Yeah. And I guess the obvious question is, how can people follow what's going on? How can they learn about the mentorship program, the workshops? How can they read the blog that Shilpa is writing? Like, what's the best way to follow what's going on?
Well, blog.flametreepublishing.com is where we have our main blogs. Flametreepublishing.com is where we advertise on the homepage for all the new events. But of course, I think we're probably getting better and better at social media because it changes every 5 seconds. So we will be hunting out on social media, but we're always trying to find new places, Discord, Reddit communities where different people communicate and join in on that. And that is the challenge these days. But in all of those sorts of places, we will be putting and advertising.
Substack, right?
So yeah, Substack and Medium as well.
Yeah, and they can join our newsletter. So every month they would know what's coming up, new submissions and stuff.
Yeah.
Sure. And what about you, Shilpa, personally? Are you on any social media? Would people be able to follow your journey?
I'm there on as a writer, it's Flame Tree, of course. But as an actor, like I have my Instagram at the Shilpa Varma, if anyone is interested in knowing what I am acting for. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to tell us or the community about what's going on? Any sort of sneak peeks about anything, or yeah, what else do you need to say? Anything?
The only thing I will say is that the one area we slightly ignore sometimes in this kind of conversation is the importance of our journals.
Ah,
We
yes, of
make
course.
beautiful journals, and the thing about journals is that they're very good for writing.
Yeah.
They're very good for poems, and they have lots of different designs, and we have many, many different sizes of journals, and I have an embarrassing number which I use. Sometimes I have a journal for my work. I have a journal for music. I have a journal for general other creative stuff. I do various things at the theatre, so you can have many, many different journals, and that's very much part of. It's a different form of expression, but it all unites in this storytelling, which is what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was actually at I was doing a course at the British Library last week, and I was using a Flame Tree journal to take my notes in.
Excellent. Thank
Yes.
you so much.
The Frankenstein one, like I can't remember what it is now, but it's beautiful. I got it at Worldcon. But yeah, anyway, I can attest to the brilliance of these notebooks. They are wonderful and very handy.
Excellent.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Nick. Thank you, Shilpa, and everybody who's listening or reading the transcript. Please do go follow Flame Tree, sign up to the newsletter, and do support everything that's going on because they are a brilliant publisher, and Shilpa's doing some great work as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate this. Appreciate your time.